What's up, guys? Rick here with your DFS preview for this week's US Open. Let's go. A couple of quick items off the top that you're going to want to stay for. Number one, I will be at LACC all week. That's right. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That is all week. If you see me, say hello. Always good to see you guys out there. Additionally, in an attempt to do something to give back, I'm going to do another giveaway this week. You know, in the past, we've done those crystals with the Players Championship, water and bunker in it, sand in it. We've done Homakawa jerseys. There was something else I think we did, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. Well, this week, it's LACC stuff. It's US Open stuff. So I've got my hands on, let's see, I've got polos. I've got bucket hats. I've got mugs that are already bubble wrapped and ready to go. Whoa, knocking everything over. I've got this fleece blanket that looks like it says LACC on it. It looks like it's got some nice stuff to it. I've got pin flags, basically whatever I could get my hands on before the event, and will get my hands on while I'm at LACC. I'll just put together a swag box or two and send it out. So the way to get in, it's very simple. It's free. All you have to do is sign up for my email newsletter. It's a weekly rundown. I call it the Run Good Rundown, with golf stats about players and courses and trends and things like that. It's absolutely free. If you are already subscribed to it, you're already entered. If you sign up, you're in the draw, and I'll draw it probably on Monday of next week, and I'll just get in touch with somebody and send it on its way. The link you need is in the description, or you can go to RickRunGood.com/newsletter, get yourself signed up. That is it. No need to pay anything, but, all right, I'll give out some swag. We'll have a US Open. It'll be awesome. Let's jump into it. LACC, the golf course, Los Angeles Country Club. It's going to be awesome, right? This is an elite golf course in an elite area, literally in Hollywood. Like, the backdrops are going to be awesome. The traffic's going to be a nightmare. Everything else is going to be super sick. So, a couple of items here. And while I kind of talk through this, what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to play, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm just going to play some of the flyover stuff from the USGA. They've done an unbelievable job with the flyover content, with a lot of stuff for this week. So I'm just going to kind of show that as we talk through it. But this is a George Thomas design, and George Thomas, famous here in LA. He did Riviera, he did Bel Air. You're going to start with these back-to-back par 4.5s, right? So you've got a very, very easy par 5, which will probably play to a 4.5, and then a very, very difficult par 4, which will probably play to a 4.5 scoring average. Same thing at Riviera, same thing at Bel Air. So this is kind of what George Thomas wanted to do. Now, this is also, it's been restored in recent years to bring back that original George Thomas design. And what you're seeing is, while these are pretty wide fairways, the undulation, the camber, it's going to effectively have them play much, much smaller. And the situation that you're going to run into is that the tee shot and the approach shot are going to be so interconnected this week, which, listen, they're obviously connected most weeks, but this week more than most, I feel like those two things go together. So you have a situation where on a lot of these greens, there is an optimal side, or excuse me, on a lot of these fairways, there's an optimal side to come in from, and there is a less than optimal side to come in from. The optimal side will generally give you a look at the green. You'll be able to see everything. You might be on the same level as it. If you are on the non-optimal side, you might be hitting to a blind green, not being able to see where it's at. It might be way above you. You're seeing it kind of here on the third hole, number 4. This entire fairway runs down towards the Barranca. We'll talk about that in a second. So you've got to hit this landing area. If you don't get there, it's much more difficult. And you're going to see that a lot. There's a lot of blind shots. There's a lot of shots that you have to be committed on. This is the Moeller green, number 3, which is deep. It's large. It's undulating. You do not want to be above the hole on any of these greens. You'll see they're rolling pretty severely from back to front. So these fairways are effectively smaller, and golfers are going to have to really, truly understand what their ball is going to do when it's on the ground. This is the opposite of TrackMan golf, right? I mean, you have to understand where to land it, how to play it, where to bring it in. There's going to be a lot of shot shaping in both directions. The way that your spin is coming into these fairways, can you hold a fairway in the correct spot? If you do, you are rewarded with the optimal way to come in. So that's kind of a big part of it is are you I also don't think distance is going to be that big of a deal. Obviously distance is always better, but this is a golf course unlike Oak Hill where it's going to be, it's going to be firm. It's probably going to be fast, and angles and like it's like accuracy is going to be more important than distance. I do not think it boxes anybody out if you are not super long off the tee, as long as you're on kind of the correct side. You'll see it again here on number 5. What does everything want to do? Everything wants to run down to the right side of this fairway, and if you're there, it's kind of blind, or you roll down into the rough, and now you're dealing with issues, right? So that's a feature you're going to see throughout this golf course. Another feature that you're going to see throughout this golf course, especially on the front 9, is the Barranca. If you are playing a drinking game, do not use Barranca as your shot word, because you will be toes up very, very quickly. Barranca, it's literally just a dried up riverbed. And what Gil Hans did in this restoration, 6 is an awesome hole, by the way. Just that's a par 4 over this tree that you can't see the green, and it's drivable. It's pretty sick. A lot of options out here, by the way. But Barranca is a dried up riverbed, an ecosystem of its own, and it reminds me of a couple of things recently. It reminds me of a little bit of the creek at Southern Hills that kind of winds throughout the property. It reminds me of the creek at Oak Hill, and it reminds me a bit of like the hard pan stuff off the fairway at Kiowa, where if you're in the Barranca, you are at the mercy of it. If you are missing in there, you might draw a great lie off hard pan. You might be dead. You might not be able to find it. You might have a situation where you're hitting out of a bush. Like, doubles are coming into play out of the Barranca. So there are certainly birdie opportunities out here. There's a lot of doubles out here as well. You'll see the Barranca here on 7, though. This is a par 3, but which, by the way, there's like 2 par 3s that are like 300 yards, and there's a par 3 that can play as short as like 79. But what I like about this Barranca, especially on the front here, is it winds. So you'll see holes, I think it's number 6, where it starts up the right-hand side, so it's in play on the right off the tee, and then it winds back over, so it's in play on the left on your approach shot. And that is something very, very similar to what we saw at Oak Hill, where it's not just always on one side. So it's asking you to commit one shot in one direction, one shot in another. It's a very difficult kind of mental assault as well. So just an unbelievable golf course that is going to be a very strong test. I don't think we have to get through all the holes here, but I will tell you, the finishing stretch, 13 on, is going to be really fun to watch. 13 is a long par 4. 14 is a par 5. Maybe there's a scoring opportunity. Maybe not. It's over 600 yards. 15 is this short little par 3 that can play 133 yards. It can play like 75 yards. It's got this really unique really unique green shape that if you put the pin on the front side of it, you are making it very, very short depending on where you put the pins. And then 16, 17, 18 are just 3 long par 4s. And it's going to be a grueling finishing stretch. So again, just to recap all of that. Oh, and by the way, it's bent grass, right? It's not Poana. It's bent grass on these LACC greens, Bermuda grass, in the fairways and rough. The other thing is, so I think you need to be accurate off the tee. I think you need to be elite on the second shot. The short game, yeah, you're going to have to be stout. I like bent grass putters, and I like guys, the thick rough, it is around most of the greens here, most of the bunkering. You'll see these real rugged bunkers where who knows what it's going to do in there. So it's a very cool, a very cool setup. So it's well-rounded, but I think, I'll show you 10. 10 is such a good hole. Because 10, if you hit it up here by this bunker, which you have to bring in the bunker, that is the way better side to come in from. But if this hits in the middle of the green or the left side of the fairway, middle of the fairway or left side of the fairway, it rolls down to the left, and now you're hitting like a blind approach shot. It's fascinating. It's really fascinating. So can't wait to get out there. I'll do some more intel and I'll tweet some stuff out, obviously. But, going through some of the satellite imagery, going through all the stuff, this is going to be really, really cool. I'll show you some of the satellite imagery here. You can see the way that the Barranca runs through this golf course. This is 3 green right here. That molar green looks like a tooth, right? And the way that it kind of meanders throughout this golf course and comes into play, particularly on the front 9. It's a splendid course. Here's 6, right, with the tree that's going to cause these guys issues. So, man, it's going to be a lot of fun. What I did do is I attempted, like I have done at major championships. So this is hard. So this is my website, RickRunGood.com. I think you should subscribe to it. You're going to see me use it almost exclusively the rest of the way here. But what I did for Oak Hill and what I've done here is, usually I would run a regression model to find, the most successful types of players at this course. Well, we've never been to LACC before, right? And there's a chance we don't ever come back to LACC. So it's tough to run a regression model. So what I do are major championships where you especially have like debut golf courses is you take a lot of the GPS satellite imagery, the measurements, you take some insights from people that know the golf course, you talk to some of the players, you look at other USGA setups and what they could possibly do, and you basically work those elements into a model. You look at comp courses. I think there's a little bit of Shinnecock here. I think there's a little bit of Kiowa in here with the hard pan. I think there's a little bit of Riviera in it. You start putting some comps together like that, and you can kind of create a little bit of a model. So the way that I see this, or the way the model sees it as well, is off the tee play is going to be pretty important. I actually think that driving accuracy is a little bit undervalued here. I would value it a little bit higher. It's 19th, which means there's 18 other courses in which driving accuracy is more important. But off the tee in general ranks 4th, which means there's only 3 other courses in which off the tee is more important. Approach play, 18th. It's actually pretty low, I think. But tee to green play in general is 9th. So you're going to get a true tee to green challenge here and a phenomenal test for the world's best. So I could not be more excited about this. Oh, listen. So if you run this, and you can trust this model as much as you want, you could, trust it 0%. But if you do like this model and you want to look at the last 36 rounds, Scottie Scheffler is the best adjusted course fit, right? I mean, the tee to green stuff, obviously, the distance, obviously. Then you get some smaller sample size stuff with like Ryan Fox and Minwoo Lee. But how about this? Victor Hovland, Ricky Fowler, Jordan Spieth, really good fits. We're going to talk a lot about Jordan Spieth. I think this is a golf course that will reward creativity. And I don't want to, you don't have to clip this, but I think it'll, as much as it can for a USGA setup, I think it's going to feel more like an Open Championship than any other USGA setup that we've seen in a while. It's a low bar, obviously, but you get my point here. Sam Stevens, Vincent Norman, Patrick Rogers, Sam Burns, Tony Finau, and then John Rahm, right? That's adjusted based on the last 36 rounds. You can go back and see any number of rounds that you want here. But, boy, it's going to be awesome. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. I'll get as much information out there when I step foot on the ground this week. But, boy, let's go. The cheat sheet at RickRunGood.com. 5 golfers over $10,000. Scottie Scheffler, 11-4. John Rahm, 11-1. Brooks Koepka, 10-8. Patrick Cantlay at 10-3. Victor Hovland at $10,000. A lot to unwrap here. Anytime you get a major championship and the 10K range, it's going to be absolutely stacked. We're going to have to split hairs here just a little bit. If you have not been paying attention, the things that Scottie Scheffler is doing right now are literally historic. I've sent this out in my newsletter. Basically, the amount of strokes that he is gaining from tee to green is like nothing we've ever seen before. And he is pairing that with some of the worst putting of his career. And that's the only thing stopping him from not running away with these golf tournaments. He finished 3rd at the Memorial, losing 8.5 strokes putting. To put that into perspective, the best finish by anybody else who had ever lost that many strokes putting was like T26 10 years ago. Scottie Scheffler demolishes that and still can finish 3rd because of how good his tee to green play is. So that's the conversation we've been having for the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months. I will admit, LACC is going to be a tough place to putt. There's a lot of undulation, and then as you turn to the second 9, they're more like subtle and internal ridges as opposed to like larger, it's almost like 2 different sets of greens. Not really, but it's going to be tough. I don't really care. I have kind of planted my flag on Scottie Scheffler at this point, and if you're gaining 15 strokes from tee to green, which is basically what he's doing right now, the last 36 rounds, he's gaining 3.17 strokes from tee to green, which is lapping the rest of the field. I mean, there are only a few guys who are gaining over 2 strokes per round from tee to green during that stretch, and Scottie Scheffler's gaining over 3. It's an unbelievable stretch of golf that he's in right now, and it's impossible to look away. I mean, there's a realistic chance he loses 2 strokes putting and wins this week. Like, that is possible. If he gains strokes at all, watch out. The rest of the game is splendid. You look at his major championship history, and by the way, I added this little major championship button. I thought that would be handy to see everything. The one miscut, the PGA Championship in 2022. That's it. That's the only blemish. Piles up top 10 finishes, piles up top 5 finishes. Obviously won the Masters in 2022. This guy has never lost strokes ball striking at a major championship. He has never lost from tee to green. It is only going to be dependent about what that flat stick does, and I have no worries about I do have worries about the flat stick. I just don't have worries about the rest of his game. Jon Rahm is a little bit interesting because Rahm is priced in a way where so there's a couple of things going on here. You've got Victor Hovland at the bottom of the 10K range who just won, obviously. Patrick Cantlay, who has struggled career-wise at major championships. We'll talk about him in a second. And then Brooks Koepka, who I think there's going to be this weird thing that happens where, because you rarely get to play Brooks Koepka, you really only get to play him in these big events 4 times a year, and he's coming off a runner-up finish at the Masters and a win at the PGA Championship, that he will be more owned than he should be. Whatever that is. It might be 8% instead of 3%. It might, you know what I mean? It might be 20% instead of 15%. I just think it's going to be more owned than he should be because you only get a chance to roster him so infrequently. So it leaves Jon Rahm kind of stuck here in the middle in this little bit of a sandwich. And he dealt with the same issues that Scottie Scheffler dealt with at the Memorial, where they lost a ton of strokes putting and gained a ton from tee to green. Now, Rahm's putting troubles have not been as bad as Scottie's, but his tee to green game has not been as good either. I think that Jon Rahm, who is already an elite approach player, is really going to have an edge on where he places his drives. The ability to hit it straight, or at least accurately, and long is going to be very, very important here. But to be able to position yourself and then turn into an elite iron player is terrifying for the rest of the field. So we'll see what the ownership does for Rahmbo here. If you're looking at the rest of the power rankings, he's one of the few guys that can really contend with the last 36 rounds of Scottie Scheffler. There's technically 4 guys, but if you get rid of Padraig Harrington and his senior tour rounds, there's only 3 guys who are gaining 2 or more strokes to the field in the last 36. It's Scottie Scheffler, it's Jon Rahm, it's Patrick Cantlay. Obviously, all 3 of them are in the $10,000 range. So if we come into a situation on Wednesday where Scottie Scheffler is incredibly highly owned and Jon Rahm sitting there at 12% or something like that, would not be a bad pivot. Brooks Koepka here, 10-8. Does it feel like it's a little bit of chasing on Brooks Koepka at the moment? Does it feel like that? He's $7,600 at the Masters. He finishes second. He's $10,100 at the PGA Championship. He wins. Now he's 10-8. Boy, I mean, you're going to need like another win, or you're going to need another podium. You're going to need a top 3 here. Is it possible? Of course it is. Brooks Koepka has dominated major championships, right? I'm going to send this out in my newsletter this week, but when you look at guys that elevate their game from regular, just non-major championships to major championships, Brooks Koepka is the guy, right? There was an interesting little nugget, and hat tip to Patrick McDonald for this one. He talked a lot about how Brooks has usually played his way into major championships, and I thought that was pretty interesting, right? Even recently, he plays the week before the Masters in Orlando and wins that event. He plays the week before the PGA Championship in Tulsa. He wins that event. Going back a little bit further, now, some of this is injury related. He wasn't able to play his way into majors, but when he was healthy, he was generally playing the week before major championships here. He played the Palmetto before the U.S. Open. He would play, I forget what the stat is, but it's basically like, I don't know, 19 out of 22 or something like that. He has played his way in, and generally that's the way that he likes to do it. But with the live schedule, he's not able to do that. They don't go up against national opens, so they don't go up against the Canadian Open. So we have a situation where Brooks Koepka is not not going to play his way in. I just think with the pricing, with what I think the ownership is going to be, there's just probably little chance I get there on Brooks. Cantlay and Victor, on the other hand, I'm buying. Now, I'm a believer. So here's where I'm at. I think there's a really good chance, and a better chance than most of these, that we get a first-time major winner. And that the trio that leads that is Cantlay, Victor, and Xander. I think that is, those three are phenomenal. Cantlay, we've talked about a lot on this channel. He's gaining 2 strokes per round in total over this last 36. If you look at his recent form, and we've talked about this a lot. If you're new, welcome. Patrick Cantlay was an equipment free agent at the start of 2023. After he got it figured out, he's been one of the best ball strikers on planet Earth. The other thing is, if you have bet or if you have invested in Patrick Cantlay major championships in his career, you're pretty unhappy, right? You don't have a win. You've got a handful of top 10s, but you generally have a lot of disappointments. I'm not sure now's the time to cut bait. His last 4 major championships are essentially his 4 best. He's got all 4 of them are top 14s or better, right? So it's not like now is the time to get away from this if you have been investing in Patrick Cantlay quite a bit. And then Victor, of course, coming off the win at the Memorial, he's got 3 straight top 7 finishes at major championships. He is going to win majors in his career. He's going to probably win multiple major championships. The game is as sharp as it gets. Any place that rewards elite ball striking like he has, watch out, right? Watch out. I know he's feeling good about his game, obviously, and I think there's a really good chance he gets it done. Let me show you this trends tool for a second, because I think this is worth. It's really hard to split hairs at the top. You can either let ownership play the game, you can just play the guy that you want, and you're not going to hear any arguments from me, right? How could I honestly say a bad word about any of these top 5 guys? It's going to be very difficult to do. But let me just try to show you this statistically a little bit. So the way that this strokes gained trend column works is it takes each golfer's 100 round baseline and says, that is who you are. That's you. And then it takes how they're playing in the last 36 or 24 or any number that you want to put in. I like 36. I think that's generally the most predictive, and it gives you a long enough time frame, but not too long. So it then takes what you're doing in the last 36, and if you're playing below your baseline, it subtracts from you. If you're playing above your baseline, it adds to you, and basically says, how are you playing right now? How are you trending? So the way to read this is Scotty Scheffler is beating his 100 round baseline in the last 36 rounds by about a third of a stroke per round. So that puts him at 2.5 strokes gained per round. The crazy part is Jon Rahm in his last 36 is almost identical to his 100 round baseline, which is really, really scary. And if you look at the way that he's doing it, he's been better on approach, worse off the tee, and worse with the putter. Well, worse with the putter means that there's probably some level of regression coming, and Jon Rahm is probably going to putt better. And if he's been worse with the driver, like Jon Rahm's one of the best drivers to ever do it. So it's really easy to see a path where the rubber band snaps and Jon Rahm is right back in this thing. Same kind of a similar story with Patrick Cantlay. Cantlay's gains are all via tee to green play, and he's actually losing to himself with the putter. That's very, very scary stuff. What you don't love to see, for example, let me give you a good example here. Like, this isn't egregious, but Jason Day is playing over his head, but he's doing it mostly with the putter. That's not a great sign. Wyndham Clark, believe it or not, but he's always been a decent putter, but he is putting over his head. That's not a super great sign. Patrick Reed, same thing. So you have to kind of break down ways that you can get to these numbers, but anybody in that 10K range is going to be a viable option. I think that in a complete vacuum, I rank them Scheffler, Cantlay, Rahm, Koepka, Victor. And when ownership is considered, it is probably going to end up being Scheffler, Cantlay, Rahm, maybe Victor, maybe then Brooks, something like that. So we'll see as the week goes on. We'll do a live chat on Wednesday, which I'm probably going to move up a little bit, probably be a little bit earlier in the day. So keep an eye out on Twitter for that, so I can get back out to LACC. But let's be real here. It's the US Open. Play who you want to play. You can't go wrong with any of these guys. The 9K range is pretty fascinating as well, and I'm not opposed to starting your lineups here, right? You could get 2 or 3 really good guys in this range. Let's start with Rory McIlroy. He's $9,900. Last 4 U.S. Opens, he's finished no worse than 9th. it's weird, right? I think last week was the most bearish I've been on Rory, and even then it's like, if the only thing is going to be maybe he doesn't hit his wedges all that well, which he hit much better in Canada, and maybe he's going to have a day where he loses 2 strokes putting like he did on Sunday, but he still gained 3.6 to the field. Like, I'm not super concerned about that. This is a lot. Well, I think there's a couple of things here. Rory was able to get through Oak Hill with kind of his B- stuff. And Rory's B- stuff at Oak Hill is good enough to finish T7 because the miss off the tee is not drastically different based on how far off the tee you hit it, right? If you miss by 1 yard or you miss by 20 yards, you're basically getting the same result. That's not necessarily the case here at LACC. So he is going to have to drive it well. Now, the good news is he's starting to show that elite driving again, right? He loses strokes at Quail Hollow, but he gains strokes off the tee at the PGA Championship, at the Memorial, and at the Canadian Open last week. And now we've got 3 straight events where he's been positive with the putter. He's also going to be asked to hit a lot more long irons this week. There are a ton of par 5s. We've already talked about this, par 4s that are like 500 yards. I mean, this is not a wedge fest. It's not going to be. And when you've got 2 par 3s that are basically 300 yards and 6 par 4s that are 500 plus and a couple of par 5, like, it's kind of screams Rory. The only thing I worry about is, will he be able to keep the driver in play? Small misses are better than big misses. That is true around LACC. I'm all okay. So the flag has been planted on Scotty Scheffler for 6 months now. I think for this week, the flag is planted on Xander Schauffele. I think if you ask me, hey, Rick, you have to make one bet this week, considering the odds, and I see Xander at like 18-1, it would be Xander. Let me break down a couple of items for you. And if you guys follow me, no, I'm not like a huge Xander guy, and I play him like, I invest normal amounts into Xander, nothing crazy. I'm not like a fanboy or anything like that. But what we've got is always one of the most well-rounded, top-tier elite golfers on the tour. That's a given. There's no arguments there. You look at his form recently. Let's look at the ball striking numbers. So let's go last 36 rounds ball striking. I've not done this. I don't know how he's actually going to rank. Let's just get rid of, so we got to get rid of some of the, let's just do the rounds that we have measured. So let's just do the PGA. We could do Euro. Let's just do the PGA rounds. Just we got to get this, got to get dialed in, got to get the bad stuff out of here. So let's see what we have. So Xander's gaining a stroke per round ball striking over his last 36. If we go more recently, I bet you it's even better. I thought it was actually going to be way better than that. Okay, it is. So if you go last 24, it's Scheffler, Rahm, Cantlay, then Xander, then Morikawa. If you look at the stat profile here, you'll see, 10 strokes gained ball striking at the RBC Heritage, 8 at Quail Hollow, 5 at the PGA Championship, and another 5 at the Memorial. Plus, he always adds gains with the putter and around the green. The major championship stuff does not get enough credit. Okay, he has gained 10 or more strokes to the field in 8 different major championships. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different major championships. He's only played like 23 of them. Okay, since he made his debut in 2017 at the PGA Championship, only Brooks Koepka and Rory McIlroy have gained 10 or more strokes to the field more frequently than Xander has. Notice his 4 best performances, his 4 best major championship performances are all U.S. Opens, because that type of USGA setup really lends itself well to a well-rounded golfer. And I think this one actually lends itself even better to a well-rounded golfer and to someone who's playing like Xander Schauffele is right now. So if you then, put the icing on the cake here, go back to the Holy Grail, sort by strokes gained total and just do, let's go back to 2017. That's when Xander Schauffele made his major championship debut, and we just do majors here, right? So I can filter for the U.S. Open, I can hold control, and I can filter for the Masters and the PGA Championship and the Open Championship. You will see that Brooks Koepka has the best strokes gained total, 2.4. Scotty Scheffler is second. Colin, Rory, Xander's been better than Jon Rahm in major championships in 2 less rounds since 2017. Xander Schauffele's been better than Dustin Johnson and Ricky Fowler. Ricky Fowler maybe is a bad example. Jordan Spieth, Justin Rose, Justin Thomas, Patrick Reed, all these guys. So it feels almost inevitable that it's coming, and it's coming soon. And I think this is a really good spot for him. So $9,600 on Xander Schauffele is going to be popular, and he should be. I'm interested to see what the industry does with a couple of Cali guys that 6 months ago, in the way too early major championship previews, Max Homa, Colin Morikawa were like 1 and 1A to win at LACC. Oh, a couple of Southern California guys who love, West Coast golf and major championships, et cetera, et cetera. Yes, that is all still true. Homa has not played great as of late. I also will note, not that it's a knock, these guys can play everywhere, but I can flash back to like Riviera, I can flash back to Torrey, I can flash back to all these places, and I can hear it, right? I can hear it. Oh, Max Homa on POA, right? Max Homa on POA. Let's go, Max Homa on West Coast POA. This is bentgrass, right? So I not that I'm worried about that, but I'm just trying to diffuse that conversation a little bit. The other problem I have, and I think it's kind of a medium-sized problem at this point, the major championship record for Max Homa is horrible. He's got a 13th place finish as his best finish, the PGA Championship in 2022. He does not have another top 40. It's shocking. You could chalk it up as variance. I actually kind of chalk it up as like Max Homa is like too much of a fan and historian of the game, and he knows how big these are, and it like is almost too big for him. So I think that I'm a little bit more bearish now than I was in January. Colin is interesting. I saw Colin's already out at LACC getting his work in. He withdrew from the Memorial with back spasms, 2 shots back heading into the final round, and it was a really good stat profile for him that week. And if I'm convinced that back spasms are weird, right? They come and go. I don't think you're gonna, if he goes down with back spasms this week, well, we won't see it coming, right? It'll pop up out of nowhere. I'm hoping that everyone kind of forgets about him, right? And they go different places and they leave Colin off of WD hanging out here, because I would get down on that. The guy that I'm definitely going to get down on is Jordan Spieth. So I think I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier. The level of creativity required at this US Open will be larger than the level of creativity required at many other US Opens. The ball will be on the ground a lot. It'll be moving on the ground a lot. It will require commitment on blind shots. It will require creativity and the artist and all that stuff that you can't control. And that's where Jordan Spieth thrives in chaos, right? Jordan Spieth thrives in things that he cannot control. And when you look at his play coming into this event, for not a long hitter, he is scorching off the tee. 5.7 on the positive at the PGA Championship, 4.2 at the Memorial. And the tee to green game, stellar for the better part of 5 months right now. The finishes are there, right? He's got a T6 in Phoenix, a T4 at Bay Hill, top 20 at the Players, T3 at the Valspar, runner-up at the RBC Heritage, T5 at the Memorial. This guy's on the verge. And I saw him at like 28-1. This is one of the better US Open setups I think you're going to be able to get on him. If you go to the weighted strokes gain numbers, which takes into account strength of field and a variety of other factors, gaining 2 strokes to the field at a PGA Championship is way more impressive than doing it at a Texas Open. Jordan Spieth is the seventh best player in the field in weighted strokes gained over the last 36 rounds. Better than Rory McIlroy, better than Tommy Fleetwood and Colin Morikawa, Matt Fitzpatrick, and some of these other guys. And it's important because it says who shows up at big events, who plays well when the competition is the stiffest. And Jordan Spieth answers that call much more frequently than he does not. The rest of this range, which I think I've talked about basically everybody. Cam Smith worries me a little bit. He's like a worse driving Jordan Spieth, a less accurate Jordan Spieth. We've talked about Cam Smith and how he wins golf tournaments, and it demands a absolute putting or short game, just like insane week, right? The Open Championship, he gained 11 strokes putting. The Players Championship, he gained 11 and a half putting. That's his path to the top, which is fine because he can do it more frequently than everybody else. But the big miss off the tee and then not being as strong of a ball striker as like a Jordan Spieth really worries me. So I think he's narrowing his path off the tee, and it already has a narrow path with the short game getting him to the top. I think, waiting till the Open Championship to roll him out is probably a bit of a better idea. And then Matt Fitzpatrick, I think I'm pretty even on, right? I like in general the way Matty's been playing. He made a run at the Memorial, played well enough the Canadian Open, probably flies under the radar in this range. Like, that's all good. Like, I'm very fair, very even on Matt Fitzpatrick. The 8K range here is probably where your leverage is. It's probably where all the money gets won and lost for a couple of reasons. I think there is a pretty significant drop off between the guys in the 9K range to the guys in the 8K range. I also think that the way that rosters are going to be constructed, it's just kind of an unnatural place to go. And these guys have a lot more questions than they do answers. The other thing is that if you do step into the 8K range, you're probably going directly to Terrell Hatton at $8,900, who has been phenomenal. So if there is any ownership, he probably sucks up a lot of it, which creates a void for the rest of these guys. Let's talk about Terrell real quick. He will be popular, and for good reason. He has not finished outside the top 20 since the Masters. He is one of the better ball strikers that we've had on tour here. I don't know, in the last 6 months. Let me get back out of here to regular strokes gained, averages, strokes gained ball striking last 36. That puts Terrell just below Tony Finau. I bet you if we go, let's see here. Oh, you know what? I got to include his European Tour stuff. That'll probably bump him up the list. Look at where he's doing his damage. Look at how hard these golf courses are, or how deep these fields are where he's doing his damage. 10 strokes gained ball striking in Phoenix, T6. 8.5 ball striking at Arnold Palmer, T4. 10.5 at the Players runner-up finish. Where else? 7.3 at the Wells Fargo, T3. I'm going to skip over Byron Nelson, which was a top 5. 6.5 last week at the Canadian Open. Now, the field was weaker, but that course was pretty tough, right? Or at least, Vegas had it right. 17.5 is what I think that their winning score prop was. So a little bit surprising that he hasn't won yet, because he's been doing this for basically the better part of 2023. The concern, I suppose, is this major championship record. Not particularly good. And I will say, though, 2 of his last 3 have been top 15s, and 3 of his last 5 have been top 15s. So it's not as bad as this stretch here, where from the PGA Championship in 2020 to the Masters in 2022, his best finish was a T18, and he had a lot of missed cuts in there. So it is trending in the right direction. I just don't think it's overly glowing, but he will capture a lot of ownership. I'm interested in maybe a pivot to Tony Finau, maybe a pivot to Justin Thomas. I will note Justin Thomas is the cheapest he has ever been in my database. So I've been tracking the salaries dating back to like 4 years, basically the start of 2019. And this is the cheapest he has ever been. So, whoops, that's just majors. But in any event, he's the cheapest he's ever been. He generally lives in the 10K range. He got down to $8,800 here in 2018. The WGC FedEx St. Jude won that golf tournament. I am starting to believe that the game is not as far off as maybe some others would like you to believe. And if he's going to be left alone in this 8K range, I'm in. And then Finau, I worry with the putter, right? He's hemorrhaging strokes with the flat stick. He's lost 4.5 in each of his last 2 starts, but we were only 4 starts removed from his win in Mexico. I think that this is a spot where he could potentially get right, drive it well, hits it far. Great second shot player, better around the green play than anybody even thinks about. And outside of this little putting slump, he's been a very good putter for like 18 months. So this super intriguing 8K range, I just want to play the game theory game here, right? Hideki's coming off a bunch of really good finishes. Actually, let's look at Hideki's stat profile together here. I think that's worth a moment because he was in it at the Memorial and kind of faded on the weekend. But look at this, okay? This looks like pretty vintage Hideki, doesn't it? Now gaining strokes on approach in 8 of 9. Not huge gains, but the last 5 have all been multiple strokes on approach. He always has a great around the green play, always. The putter, 50-50. And the driver is coming around-ish, right? This is a pretty darn good stat profile. I am hoping to get like a single digit today. Look at his US Open history. Look at his US. First of all, I'll just click his major championship history, but look at his US Opens. It was like, however many straight, like, look at this. Hold on. Let's just do US Opens. 4th, 26th, 17th, 21st, 16th, runner-up. Those were his last 6. He missed the cut in 2016 and then added 2 more top 20s in the 3 years before that. USGA, it's kind of a thing, right? There's a formula to these types of setups. And obviously you get kind of similar stuff at the Masters. You kind of get similar stuff at the US Open. The PGA Championship has gotten a lot better in their setups in the last couple of years. PGA of America. Hideki is the pivot, hopefully, in the 8K range. As we enter the 7K range, I want to go back to the trends tool. I think it's such a valuable tool to look at here and just kind of look through the 7K range and find the guys that are trending. Jay Rose here, 1.75 strokes gained per round. He's $7,700. He's certainly at the top of that list. Tommy Fleetwood, 1.43. Both these guys had good weeks last week. Wyndham Clark, 1.99. Wyndham Clark is criminally priced. Mito Pereira, 1.58. We'll talk about him. Danny McCarthy, 1.22. Victor Perez, 1.26. So there's because it is a major, because the pricing is so soft, there are a lot of really good plays in the 7K range, which again, I also think is going to change the value proposition for the guys in the 8K range and leave them pretty much untouched, because the guys at the top of the 7K range are the ones that, you know, played well last week or were in the mix, right? You've got Fleetwood at 7,900. You've got Corey Connors, who faded on the weekend, but 7,800. You've got Jay Rose, 77, right? These are guys that are top of mind and playing well. They're going to draw a lot of ownership at the top here, and certainly well deserved. I'll point out a couple, and then we can talk about some plays here. You know, just a hat tip to Jay Rose. We talked about him last week and said the same thing I'm going to say here. He is no longer relying on the putter. The ball striking is back. The tee to green game is back. I do not think this is a golf course that you have to be overly long, which I think is good for him. And, you know, he has played in so many major championships for so long, and he's still kind of getting it done. Back at Oak Hill just a couple weeks ago, T9, T16 at the Masters this year. So he's played 2 major championships this year. Both are 16th or better. Go back the last 4. You had a 37th at the US Open last year and a 13th at the PGA Championship. So 4 in a row where you didn't even drive it well. He lost strokes off the tee in each one of those and still put up a bunch of really good finishes. I would argue he is playing a lot better now than he was leading into any of those other golf tournaments, outside maybe the PGA Championship. But this is just more, you know, in the same direction for Justin Rose. The interesting pivot would be to Bryson. It's a very low bar, and I'm sure I've said this before, for Bryson DeChambeau. It is a very low bar, but he's playing the best golf he's played in probably the last 18 months. He's got 2 straight top 10s on LIV and a T4 at the PGA Championship, in which he gained 7.5 strokes off the tee and another 4 on approach. That's crazy talk. That's absolutely crazy talk. And I do worry, in the same way that I worry about Rory, like, if you miss big, you're in trouble. Now, Bryson's long enough where he can kind of club down in some spots if he's smart enough to play a little bit more positional golf when it's presented to him, but then kind of unleash the beast on some of these longer holes. I mean, think about what he's going to hit into the 300-yard par 3s instead of the other guys. Think about what he's going to be able to do if he can get to 1 or 2 of the 5s, or, you know, these 500-yard par 4s. Like, what club is he hitting in compared to his peers? I think that's a really interesting option for this week, and we'll kind of see what ownership shapes up as. But I think Rose and Fleetwood might eat a lot of it here. If you have followed any second of content since like Phoenix, you've heard me talk about Wyndham Clark, and you should continue to hear me talk about Wyndham Clark. The win at Wells Fargo, the T12 at the Memorial, when we went to the power rankings, and I should probably just refresh this because I've put so many filters and things on that I'm not even sure where we're at anymore, but like literally just the last 36 rounds, raw strokes gained across all tours. So that gives guys like Asian tour players a boost. It gives like Patty Harrington a boost because he crushes the guys on the senior tour. All that considered, Wyndham Clark's the 5th best player in this field in the last 36 rounds. Better than Terrell Hatton, better than Xander Schauffele, better than Justin Rose, better than Victor Hovland. Like, that is how good he has been. And the way that he plays, there's not a lot of golf courses that set up poorly for him. I will note one. So I've already talked about that. I will note one other thing. He is like a jock market crusher. So Jock Market is where it's like stock market DFS. You buy shares of golfers at certain prices in a bidding process. And then depending on their finishing position, there's guaranteed payouts. So even when Wyndham Clark wasn't winning, but he did win the Wells Fargo, he was crushing the Jock Market because he was outperforming his expectations. So he's like got an average ROI of 53%. So he averages selling for $630 per share, and average payout is $926 per share. And it's a week long game. And it's phenomenal. Here was last week. Like if you had Terrell Hatton shares last week, it went from $10.93 to $18. So you made $7.07 a share. Aaron Rye, $5.70 to $16 a share. So there's a lot of ways to get involved, but this is a really cool one, especially for the guys in this range. I have a deposit bonus code, Rick. Use the link in the description. You can get $100 and rock and roll with us and buy some shares. Maybe one of the most intriguing guys in the $7,200 range is Mito Pereira. And it's a little bit difficult because he is on live and we don't have the full stat profile, but maybe out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people. He's been playing well on live. DC finished third. Singapore he finished fifth. Tulsa he finished 30th. Look at these two major championship performances that we have this year where we do have the strokes gain metrics, right? So the Masters, he finished T43, but he gained 8 strokes ball striking. The PGA Championship, he gained 9.5 ball striking, finished T18. If we go to the Holy Grail and we just look up, major championships this year, do I already have them selected or not? I do. So of everyone who has played both major championships this year, Scotty Scheffler's been the best ball striker. Then it's Brooks Koepka. Then it's Patrick Cantlay. Okay. A trio of elite. Then it's Mito. So that's the class he is in. He is going to need to putt better, but this is a very good price for a guy who literally had one hand on the PGA Championship trophy last year, on the Wanamaker last year, and should have won it, and is playing good golf. And when we get the metrics are very good. So that's $7,200, and hopefully a lot of people forget that he exists. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Russell Henley's here at $7,100. Another guy that I think a lot of people just forget is out there. I was looking through this, and if you, this is the trends tool. So Russell Henley has really improved his putting, which can be seen as a little bit of a concern that he's putting over his head. But let's take a little bit of a look at this. So if we look at his stat profile, the problem with Russell is that he just has historically hemorrhaged strokes with the flat stick, losing 3, 4, 5 per week. Well, I'll tell you what, since the start of 2023, he's been a lot better. He has gained more frequently with the flat stick than he has lost. And now he is back to gaining 1 or 1.5 strokes on approach. He has very quietly earned 4 top 20 finishes in his last 5 starts, including the Masters at T4. Do you remember Russell Henley finishing T4 at the Masters? Does anyone? T19 at the RBC Heritage, T16 at the Memorial. Those are some big boy events. Let me show you the difference in Russell Henley just real quick here. So I'm just going to use the date range. And in the calendar year of 2022, Russell Henley was losing 0.19 strokes putting per round, 0.19. So almost 0.2. In the calendar year of 2023, which is obviously the one that we're in, and we're getting half a year. Let me reboot this. He's gaining 0.1 strokes. Now, that is not a huge gain, but what that is essentially doing is he's a third of a stroke better. So a third of a stroke better per round. So over 4 rounds, that's 1.2 strokes with the putter. It's a lot. That is a lot. When you already have, look at the numbers across the board in 2023. When you're already a positive driver, when you're already a very good approach player, top-notch approach player, and your around the green game is stout, to improve a third of a stroke in your per round in your worst area is very, very good. So you love to see that from Russell Henley, and I think it's been a very quiet stretch of golf for him. The other thing that I think might be interesting about starting some majority of your lineups in the 9K range is that it opens up the 7s, opens up the 8s, and doesn't necessarily require you to get down to the 6s, which I think is a pretty sour range. We've been tracking Carson Young for a couple months. He's been phenomenal. Hayden Buckley is probably one of the better, just like raw course fits. He is going to hemorrhage strokes around the green. The path for Hayden is whatever you lose around the green, you need to gain and then some, or you need to offset with the putter. And he does that about half the time. When he does, you can get some pretty good results out of him, like this T5 at the RBC Heritage, this T10 at the Valero Texas Open, the T26 at the PGA Championship. So that right there has to happen. If he does not offset his losses around the green with the flat stick, he is cooked, he is toast, he will not be around for the weekend. So step one there. The other part of the equation is he's an absolute elite driver of the golf ball. Just absolute elite. I guess we could look this up, last 50 rounds, because I want to give him like some type of larger sample size here. And I'll just do the PGA Tour because that's the most reliable data. Strokes gained off the tee. I bet you he's right between Gary Woodland and Cameron Young. That's how good he is. He's like 6th or 7th on this list. So just absolutely gains a ton of strokes there. And then about half the time, you're going to get multiple strokes gained on approach. So let's say half the time he offsets himself and half the time he gains on approach. So now we need both those things to happen. So it's like 25% chance that Hayden Buckley gets this stat profile that we want and he finishes inside the top 20, something like that. But I think he's like a pure course fit guy, and the math kind of adds up on a way that he could get to the top of the leaderboard. I'm not super stoked with the rest of these guys. I think Adam Hadwin draws, a good week in Canada, 12th place finish there with Nick Taylor winning and finished 7th at the US Open last year, and he's played okay golf. I think that's fine. Right? I think he's a savvy vet who's going to get himself around a U.S. Open, not kind of play himself out of it. He rarely plays himself out of it. It's just a matter of whether he has enough firepower to stay in it. Like, I think Sam Stevens is interesting, but is he going to get absolutely smashed on these greens? Like, I kind of think maybe. Sam Bennett played well again last week. I think we've got to start taking him pretty seriously. So he's played, the U.S. Open, he finished 49th. That was last year. He played this year. He finished T16 at the Masters. He turns pro. He finishes 63rd at the Memorial. And then he finishes T20 at the RBC Canadian Open. Or did he turn pro after the Memorial? Either way, he turned pro like in the last week or two after his season was over at Texas A&M, but he's gained ball striking in all 4 of those events. I think we have to start taking him pretty seriously. So I lie. That's somebody else that I'd be pretty comfortable with here at $6,400 or $6,500. Dylan Woo's is $6,400, and he's just routinely mispriced, and he continues to be mispriced here. I thought maybe there was one more. I don't think we're going to fall into the Gordon Sargent thing this week, which is probably means he will go off and have a phenomenal week. Maybe that was it. Let me just sort by strokes gained total real quick for the last 36 and just see if I'm missing anybody. Jordan L. Smith is a very good European Tour player. But I think that we got all these guys. We'll run a model here and see if we can uncover any values that way as well. Here's the model at RickRunGood.com. You have access to the database. You put in the weights that you want on like 150 different stats or anything that you want, and build your models, build your teams, get your rankings, and then you can convert them to teams. Okay. Boy, I kind of want to get a little bit freaky with this. So let's do a couple of things. Let's do driving accuracy, 10, and strokes gained off the tee in the last 36, 10. So what we've done there is we've weighed driving 20 because off the tee encompasses accuracy and distance, and we gave a nod to accuracy. We're basically like weighing our own strokes gained off the tee in the way of accuracy. Strokes gained approach, I think, is going to be critical. Let's go 36, 20 there. Let's go 15 around the green, or 10 around the green, and 10 with the putter. Now, I want to get a little bit freaky. So let's go to hole types. And let's do, I don't even, like par threes, the buckets stop at 200 plus, right? I mean, these are going to be 300. Let's do 10 on par fours over 500 yards. Let's do 5 on par fives between 550 and 560, and 5 on par fives, 600 or more. Let's do hard courses for 10. And we've got 10 left. We could do, I did do putting, but we could do bent grass putting. Let's put 5 on bent grass putting. And then let's do 5 on, we could do bogey avoidance, or we could do bird. I think you are going to be able to score out here. I just think you're also going to be able to make double out here pretty quickly. Let's do Could do like opportunities gained or opportunities plus gained. Let's do opportunities gained. Last 5. Our number 1 player is, wow, Patrick Cantlay. Patrick Cantlay runs a coup and becomes the number 1 player. John Rahm 2, Scheffler 3, Jordan Spieth 4, Xander 5. I will lose so much money. There's a chance that my betting card is those 3. Cantlay, Spieth, Xander, and I go to battle with those guys. I think I could get away with that. I'll obviously bet Victor as well, just because I bet him every single week. Everybody knows that. But 3 guys with 3 out of those 4 without a major championship wins, a little bit scary. Rose is 6. That's incredible. He's $7,700. That's how good he's been. Terrell Hatton is $8,900. He's 7th. Victor is 8th. Tony Finau is 9th. Ricky Fowler is 10th. Wow. Fleetwood 11th. Wyndham Clark 12th. Cool. Oh, look at this. Hideki 13. I love that. Eric Cole 17th at 7K. That's awesome. Max Homa 9,400, 23rd. That's not good for Max. Rory's 25th. The accuracy kills him. And the long par 5s actually kill him. Interesting. Okay. JT gets a knock as well, unfortunately. Wow. Okay. Well, I'll rerun this. I'll save this as Monday US Open, so I can come back to this and we can rerun it on the Wednesday live chat. So I'll save that. But it's going to be a phenomenal week. You can get in here and mess around with it. Go sign up for RickRunGood.com. I worked so hard on it, and I think it's great, and I think you guys will love it too. And I'm always trying to make improvements to it. Make sure you're signed up for the giveaway. So all you have to do is sign up for the newsletter. It's free. RickRunGood.com/newsletter. Link in the description. Promo code for Jock Market is Rick. That'll give you free money. If you see me out there, say hello. Looking forward to being on the grounds at LACC, rocking and rolling. It's going to be a beautiful week. I will talk to you guys soon. Best of luck.